There hasn't been retail-based crowdfunding. That's now changed as of May, and we are seeing a few more of those sites. The difficulty is that those sites haven't really done any of the curation. So from our crowd perspective, we see a bit of risk around that. And so, again, while we encourage people to look at opportunities and invest in them, but it's no different to kind of your neighbour asking you to put some money into their great idea. We people obviously have to do due diligence and be careful around that. At the international level, we have seen, and we're seeing it locally as well, in some of the conversations we're having with large financial organisations who want to be part of the OurCrowd story. In Singapore, we had UOB, which is one of Singapore's largest banks. They allocated $15 million to OurCrowd. I was in Israel in January. Ali, my colleague, and I were in Israel in January. They had a delegation of about 20 people walking the country through Israel, which is quite amazing. So they see this as an opportunity, not just to invest in the companies, but actually draw ideas and draw technology out of those companies and deploy it back within their organisations. So I think for large organisations, and I've spoken to people at NAB and CBA and other banks as well, that they acknowledge that they can't do this internally. And they'll stifle those startups internally through bureaucracy and through paperwork. They're much better to kind of allow those tentacles, and if they can tap into it for certain things. I actually think all ASX 50 or 100 companies should actually be able to deploy 2% of their profits or whatever towards these startups, because they actually get a lot more value if they can actually then use that technology towards their customer service or towards their employee engagement or towards whatever it is. They can actually draw those things back in. They'll make a lot more, I guess, return on that through either the efficiencies or through actually the return on the investment.
So that leads us to, that's a really interesting point. And I guess one question I put to all of you, because you come from sort of the startup space through to the organisation, is what do you think the model is? Because we've got lots of companies doing lots of different models. So do you try and build this innovative capability in your organisation? Do you say, I'm going to just look around and see what happens and then I'll just buy it? Or do you do it, say, what Westpac's done with Reinvention, set up a fund to invest? There's a bunch of models floating around how you manage this whole fintech space. Any views on what, or do you say, well, if you go build, borrow, buy, we'll borrow some technology from IBM, or we'll wait till your organisation's cooked and then we'll buy it, or we'll try and build it internally and hope that it works? Any thoughts from anyone on what you think is a model around this? Simon.
I'll give you some observations as to what Westpac is trying to do through Reinventure.
Yep.
So one of the things that I was fascinated to find out when I joined Society One was how close was the relationship between Westpac and Society One, and how was Westpac going to be able to use Society One as an innovation.
So do you want to just tell people what the Reinventure model is?
So Reinventure is Westpac's captive VC fund that invests in fintech businesses, with Westpac looking to make a financial return, but even more an IP return, and understand what's going on and either bring it in-house or understand what's going on and bring that IP in-house and utilise it. So I really wanted to see how well Westpac, as an incumbent monolithic dinosaur, was able to interact with a cutting-edge startup and with innovative culture and processes and everything else. And to my surprise, I found two things. I found that they really, really wanted to. Right, so they tried. They threw everything at it, from the CEO down, telling all of its managing directors and general managers down the line, you have to cooperate with these guys. We've invested in them. We have invested much more than the however many millions of dollars there was. We've invested our reputation and our brand, and it's got to work. We want to learn from it. And to their credit, they provided resources and people and everything else, all the assets that they could bring to bear. But then there was this sort of wake-up moment where I was trying to get some resource from somebody fairly high up in Westpac, and they said, look, Simon, I'll help you, but it's going to take me 3 months to get that piece of information for you, because I actually have a $5 billion budget outside your little, however many man operation, and it's just going to take me some time, okay? And you realise that no matter how hard a large incumbent wants to innovate, it's got $100 billion business to run and to protect with budgets and people and capital which far outweigh any little innovative effort that's trying to do, whether internally or externally. And that was when it was external, let alone if it's internal and trying to compete for capital and resources, and when you don't have everything in alignment from the CEO down saying, help this business. So it's got to be really, really hard to do it internally.
Right, okay, and interesting perspective. Can I just ask, do you want to just check that the air conditioning's on? I can see it's getting a bit warm in parts of the room. Just there's a panel there. I don't know if it's on. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I guess from our perspective as a startup, about 12 months ago we approached one of the big banks and we pitched them our concept, and they just laughed at us and told us to get out. I was like, we can't do this. It's virtually impossible, and we've got too many things to worry about, and the pie that you're looking at is pretty useless. It's not going to happen in Australia. We got pretty hard done by, but what's actually happened in the last, I think, 4 months is we've actually turned our tact. Instead of going in there and saying, hey, this is the product and this is amazing, what we've found that actually works is look at what their model is. Look at what are they doing? And I was talking to someone earlier. Banks, what do? They manage money. They manage your money, and their number one priority is making sure they don't lose that money. If you walk in one day and give $100, you expect $100 the next day. So their business is to protect your money and to protect risk. So we started to flip that, and we said, hey, here's what our business is going to do for you from a risk perspective. So we started working from a partnership, taking that risk angle. And I cannot tell you how much that's worked. That's literally, we've had doors knocking everywhere from most major banks and international banks saying, holy crap, now we understand what you're doing, and now we understand where it's going to go and how it's actually going to affect us. They're now seeing that as an opportunity for them to get into the market, get into these spaces where they traditionally won't be working in. So the partnership model of reducing risk is what we found as the most efficient thing. And I think that's what's always going to be in their mind. At the end of the day, banks are businesses. They're there to make money. They're there to appease shareholders. They're there to do stuff like that. And at the end of the day, they need to manage that risk. And startups are typically high risk to them. That's why it's really hard to do that quick turn within the organisation by themselves. And putting a little bit of investment to an external organisation essentially moves that risk away from them and puts the risk onto us. So when they start seeing that as the value, and they start seeing that as the operating model, they feel that that's the way that they can actually get the benefit and be part of the game at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, Richard?
I'd just like to give a bit of a comment in terms of how IBM approaches this, because I think it's a little bit different from the other comments. Like, IBM Research is an organisation I work with a lot now with blockchain, and because it is a new technology, we have a bunch of PhDs spread around the world working on this technology. What IBM's go-to-market model is, we actually try to engage directly, primarily with the big end of town, although we do interact with startups as well. And basically what we try to do is harvest IP. We provide a trusted partnership, so we have researchers who will work directly with the organisation, often in conjunction with the university. So for instance, the Westpac hackathon, which was recently run, was done in conjunction with the University of New South Wales. So we'll often partner with a university and have our own researchers work with a bank, for example, around trying to build a solution. Then we will get the IP, they'll get a product out of it which is innovative. So it's a quite different model from your traditional, do we either try to incubate in-house or do we purchase or borrow?
I think that's actually a function of who IBM is. Like IBM is an R&D company with product at the end of it, and so they try and do things, and they've got a very strong R&D mindset and growth mindset to try things, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but that's part of the product discovery process.
I'm glad you think that of IBM. We tend to think it's just a sales organisation.
It's got a product, and it always has to improve that product. It's like a drug company. A drug company has, why do things go on patent and off patent? They go on and off patent based on the fact that they've thrown 1,000 different chemical formulations together, and one of them's paid off, and that's their payback period. Exactly. And whereas I don't think that mindset is very prevalent within financial services organisations, because financial services, it's actually almost in the name, it's a services organisation, and they haven't actually had to develop their product. And now they're beginning to realise, you know what, they have to. But it's not. It's not I get very frustrated when people say, "Oh, this is going to destroy the bank." It's not going to destroy banks.
No.
It's going to actually improve them over time.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is throw it open to questions from anyone. Maybe if we grab one of these microphones, so we'll leave you guys with one, and maybe if you just put your hand up so we can capture your question. Over, Andrew over here. Yep. Yep. And do you want to just say like who you are, just your name and?
Sure.
Yep.
My name's Elliot. I'm at the CBA. So really interesting perspectives, and one of the things that I'm really interested in is this idea of partner selection. So for banks to coordinate and partner with a startup or someone who's sort of almost, you know, on the plane to incumbency, how do you pick the right partner when you've got privacy, data risk, so much regulatory risk? And the kind of flip side to that as well, so kind of a double-barreled question, is how does the disruptor, the fintech, avoid the incumbency dilemma, you know, when they reach critical mass and in turn face the bureaucracy challenges that the incumbents face in defending their turf?
Who'd like to kick off? Simon.
Perhaps the second question first. That's largely what I was doing for the last 12 months. You know, startup grows to a point where instantly we've got 3 or 10 or 30 people, but I took it from 30 to 80 people. And so every time you go from 3 to 10 to 100, to, you change the organisation. And it's really, really hard, and you're scaling very, very quickly. You're not faced with, you know, a monolith like a 140-year-old institution, so it's a lot easier to change things. But every new person you hire, you sort of change 1% of the culture if you've only got 100 people, right? As opposed to CBA, you can hire 100 people, it won't change the culture a bit. So you've got a lot more levers to pull, but because you're moving so much more quickly, the imperative to change is much greater, and it's just as hard, right? Just that you've got many more levers you can pull, because it's still a very, very malleable, flexible organisation, but doesn't, you know, change the scale of the challenge. In terms of choosing which partner